Hello manga and anime lovers, I'm Branch Miner 1, you can call me Branch, and today I'm going to be talking about How to Become Ordinary, Season 2, Episode 7, which is the final episode, or so it seems, in this arson case. Everything is wrapped up in this one episode, and I don't have that many thoughts, because most of the reveals and the details are things that I've already... If I haven't touched upon them, then I've at least alluded to them or come close to touching upon them. So really, it's just kind of a summary episode, while also, closing the story arc of this entire the entire first half of this second season, or Kobato and Osanai's second year in high school. So let's just cut to the chase. The culprit was Urino-kun's cram school friend. It makes sense, I'm not going to lie. In fact, it makes a whole lot of sense when Kobato explains it. At first, I was thinking, where in the world is this guy even going? But then it turns out that, actually, literally every single clue was a red herring, and the solution was the only solution that made any sense. The list that Urino came across at his house, actually had nothing to do with the actual cases. I believe, was the first case... I don't think the first fire case was even part of that list. It was just maybe the second one was on the list, and that's what got him confused. But the cram school guy was actually, as Kengo feared, taking inspiration from the newspaper club's writings to decide his location for the next fire. And Kobato figured it out quite easily with a little trap, one that is very, very simple. And like I suspected, something to do with altering the newspaper, and that is changing the specific location in the what do you call it? The predicted arsonist. Crap. Why is my brain not working today? The specific, where the arsonist was going to strike next, he changed, instead of just having the broad location like Urino was doing, he had, what's the guy's name? The timid guy in the newspaper club, add in a specific location, a different one for every classroom. And then, of course, when the arsonist struck in that specific location, he knew exactly what classroom he was in, and there you go. Then you just had to do it one more time to narrow it down, and there you go. Then that's how he figured out, at least more or less, who it was. But he didn't even need to figure out who exactly it was specifically, because they just had police, or was it police? They had law enforcement basically stationed out at that area, so they caught the arsonist when he went to go make the fire. At least I believe that's what happened, and if not, it's close enough. Because that's not what is important in this episode. The important thing is Osanai and Kobato getting back together. And I gotta say, there is very clumsy storytelling this entire first part of the season. And it's not like it's anything new to How to Become Ordinary. The first season had the exact same, I hesitate to call it a problem, but the exact same style in narrative structure, where they focus on the mystery and the more important character emotional beats is put to the side. Now, Hyoka actually has this exact same structure too, but Hyoka's adaptation is a bit different in that it primarily focuses, or at least highlights, the character moments a lot better and makes them more clear, whereas How to Become Ordinary tries to make them a little too mysterious to the point where you don't understand it until they explain it. Now, I did suspect previously, and I might have even said this in the last review, that Osanai was trying to figure out who the culprit was. And it turns out that was only partially true. She was trying to figure out the culprit because, well, hold on, let's backpedal a bit. Let's start at the beginning. Osanai's entire motivation for everything comes from her not loving Urino, but wanting to love him and wanting to, kind of like what Kobato was doing, become ordinary by playing an ordinary role. Now, she failed spectacularly, much quicker than Kobato did, surprisingly, in that she basically immediately began manipulating people to help Urino with his newspaper activities, whereas Kobato at least managed to play it low and stay out of the mystery for a while until the van got caught on fire, which, by the way, was a complete coincidence, and I am a little bit sad about that. That was another red herring. The van itself had actually no reason for being set on fire. It was just an old van, and it just coincidentally happened to be the same van as the one used in the kidnapping case. Again, this mystery is filled with red herrings, like even more than usual. But so Osanai was earnestly trying to help Urino until that one episode where he took over the newspaper club and he was basically on top of the world and he was really trying, he was really going gung-ho about it and got a little too ahead of himself. And like I mentioned before, where he tries to kiss her really out of nowhere. And thinking back on that scene, it was obviously a pivotal turning point, especially in Osanai's demeanor. The problem is that Osanai's demeanor is usually scary, to say the least. I don't know how to describe it. The only thing I can say is she never seems sincere and she always seems like she's plotting something. But there is a very specific physical change in her, the way she physically, I guess, acts in that scene after that attempt of Urino to kiss her against her will. And that is exactly where she turns her mind around from wanting to help Urino to wanting to get revenge on him. And as she describes it at the end of the episode, to basically completely make him regret existing, to make him see himself as a completely incompetent person and lose all faith in himself. I'm paraphrasing here, but it's basically what she said. And that is why, by the way, it makes sense that I didn't catch the train was by her, because it sounded really odd, and it was because she was actually playing it through a sound device into the phone to make Urino suspect her and therefore completely lose track of the actual culprit. There's so many red herrings and runarounds and mysterious circumstances happening in this arc that I will say the moment-to-moment mystery was really good and the tension was really good, but I won't say that the conclusion was satisfying, and well, at least not super satisfying. And that's not because the plot itself is bad. I don't think so. It's because us as the viewers got progressively more lost in the last couple of episodes before the conclusion, instead of gradually easing the viewer into Osanai's motives and the actual, culprit and Urino's suspicions. It kind of just expected us to either pick it up. Basically, the character plot beats were also meant for us to search hard and figure it out ourselves instead of just the mystery. And that's kind of it's a hit or miss in stories. And this time it was mostly a miss. Again, not that the actual plot was bad, just the presentation. And this may also very well be an adaptation problem, because as far as I can recall, Hyouka never had this kind of issue, at least the anime. I've not read the light novel, so I can't speak on that. But putting all that aside, let's go to the most important and rather what should have been the most satisfying ending of this arc, with Kobato and Osanai coming together and basically officially going out now. Like I expected, and I've said again and again and again and again in these reviews, Osanai and Kobato prematurely, quote-unquote, broke up because they did not understand anything. And I've already gone on what I think about that. And they get together because they understand, Kobato specifically understands that he cannot be ordinary, at least his definition of ordinary. And Osanai, well, she has failed spectacularly on all fronts. And what she says is very interesting. She says that, to paraphrase, the reason she wanted to, and they didn't break up before because they weren't officially together, but the reason they separated from each other was because she saw there was no point in being together because they were there for an alliance to become ordinary, and they just enabled each other. And now she realizes that while they had failed on that aspect, they were still competent in other aspects, and that them being together also had a merit to it. Now, she seems to kind of miss the mark here, whereas I think Kobato completely sees the light, so to put it. He understands why he enjoys being with Osanai, and that it's better for his mental health to not force himself to act like a completely different person. Osanai seems to think that, I honestly don't know what she thinks, and this is one of the problems with Osanai, is that she's never sincere. Or, well, it's not that she's never sincere, it's that she never acts sincere, so it's hard to tell when she is being sincere. And more so than that, she never speaks her full mind. She only says half of what she knows. She only gives half of her information, to borrow a line from Monogatari. And that is very confusing and makes for rather odd wrap-ups to these emotional storylines. But whereas Kobato seems committed to Osanai, he realizes that basically she's the only one who will not only listen to him talking, but he just enjoys being around her and he can be himself around her. She is rather strange. She's either being tsundere about it or she has no idea what she wants. And perhaps that will be a topic of a future arc. Maybe not the next one, but in fact, I'm almost sure it will be, because we have yet to explore Osanai's psyche. We've explored Kobato's psyche extensively, especially in the end of last season, and in this first arc of the this first arc of the second season. We've explored how he loves to solve mysteries and how oftentimes he will put aside people's feelings in order to do it, and he won't care what other people think of him. He just cares about the consequences. But when he's with Osanai, he doesn't have to worry about the consequences because she doesn't care. So she will not react negatively to whatever he does. Except for the end of last season, but putting that aside, they seem to have grown past that. And now Kobato he enjoys figuring Osanai out, and I think Osanai enjoys him figuring her out. Like when he deduces her real motive, her revenge, at the end of the episode. And she's very, very satisfied by it in a way that she was not satisfied by Urino's deducting skills. And I think really them being, well, maybe not so much with Kobato. Kobato was in a relationship and it just showed him that acting not unlike himself and being with a, well, supposedly ordinary person would not make him happy. Osanai realized that being with someone subpar did not make her happy, which is a very similar but distinctly unique difference. Because Osanai, or at least she doesn't deduce, but she expects someone better to come along. Now, I don't know if that's her being stubborn or if that's what she really thinks. Again, back to her character. But she expects someone better to come along, and Kobato is just her placeholder. At least that's what she says. I personally do not think so. I don't think she will find anyone more satisfying to be around from the way she acts. Because Kobato also basically, he understands her more than Urino ever did. So she can be herself around him. And it's much easier to be with somebody when you can be true to yourself and you don't have to keep putting up a front. So I think there's still some tenuous circumstances in their relationship, even if they are official right now. And I expect it to come from Osanai's end because she is extremely strange, to say the least. And I don't mean unordinary. I mean, she probably does not quite she's either afraid to be sincere or she does not understand the meaning of the word. But that's really all I have to say on this episode from what I can remember. Again, this first arc still has been the best one so far. The tension throughout was great, and the plot was really good, and the character beats were really good. Just the pacing and the presentation left some stuff to be desired. But now I'm really curious what we have to go in this next, not even less than half of the series, or this season, I should say. The next, I think, 5 episodes? I don't know. I don't know if they're all going to be, if I had to say, they were probably going to be a series of mini mysteries, like at the beginning of the first season. Maybe a couple 2-parters, maybe if we're lucky, a 3-parter, but I think it's mostly going to be small mysteries. Exploring either their new relationship or maybe it will cover their entire 3rd year and it will be completely uneventful. I don't know, but I don't know. I'm curious if this show will last past their high school because they only have 1 year left. It's been 2 years now. I don't think it's summer vacation, though I could be wrong. Again, the timeline makes me forget where in the world I am. It's not snowing outside, so it's not winter. That's all I know. All right, well, now I'm just yapping about unrelated stuff. So I'm excited to watch the next one. Hope to see you in that discussion video. And until then, so long.